Okay, Leo, just let me know when we are live.
You can go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us at another one of our live events, our online live events. Today we are talking with Ania Szostek, former product director at Tinder, and we're going to be talking about traps of product management. I'm super excited for this. Been following the product for years. They've got a great history and a few interesting companies that have followed, kind of built an entire industry around their product. So super interested to hear the rest. Quickly about myself, I'm an associate product management consultant at Product People. I've been there for only about 3.5 months, but I have a history in product management in startups and building lots of products. Quickly about Product People. So we're on a mission to help companies discover and deliver products faster. We do the unglamorous hands-on work of product managers, product owners, product ops, product leaders on an interim and fractional basis. Think maternity leaves or covering permanent hires or sabbaticals. That's our sweet spot. We've got 40 in-house product managers that are able to act as interims. Fantastic people, very, very smart. I can attest to the people I'm working with. They're really, really good. And we've got a pretty big community of 27,000 people actually at this point. And we share videos like this and content consistently on a daily basis. So please give us a follow if you're not following us currently. We're going to go through a quick poll question just to create some engagement here with everybody. So I'm going to go through the questions quickly. What do you think is the most common trap in product management? Scope creep, analysis paralysis, whatever word there, feature bloat, shiny object syndrome. And then which aspect of product management traps have you encountered most often? Neglecting user feedback, overestimating market demand, ignoring technical debt, and focusing solely on short-term goals. There should be a poll that pops up in your screen.
I could see that.
Oh, it's there already. Perfect. I'm sitting looking at my slides. That's why it's not working. And we've got the results as well. What do you think, Anya?
Can I vote? The question is.
Yeah, of course, if you can, absolutely. Yeah, if it gives you the option to,
Okay.
for sure. Sure. Yeah, I think I know what I would vote for. I think I guess we're getting close to the end of it. I would say I think feature bloat is my biggest mistake. The biggest trap. It's so easy to keep building. And then
in my presentation, I'm going to go a little bit about something different. One from the list, but not the feature bloat.
Okay, so it looks like we have the results in. And so feature bloat. So the biggest trap was feature bloat, it seems. Shiny object syndrome was very close. I think shiny object syndrome also leads to feature bloat. So there's a bit of a correlation there. And then which aspect of product management traps have you encountered most often? Focusing solely on short-term goals. Yeah, fair enough. That's a pretty good, Ignoring technical debt. Okay, that was a completely ignored. Okay. Cool.
Cool, because I'm going to mention some of them and actually go deeper into the other ones. So I'm happy.
That's perfect. I mean, that's why we have the polls.
The percentage, like how the ratio between different answers.
Yeah. So okay. So well, on that note, let's hand this over to you, Ania Szostek, former product director at Tinder. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm going to let you take over.
Let me share my Chrome tab. Yes. Can you see my screen?
You can, yes.
Okay, perfect. So, hello everyone. I'm happy to see such a big audience here, and I hope for a lot of questions. Maybe to start, I'll say that there is nothing better than learning from others, and especially from their failures. Why would you have your own failure if you can learn from someone else? And over your time in product management, you have probably read countless traps one can fall into. And what I would like to talk about today are the ones that I have personally experienced, and dive deeper into what exactly happened and what didn't happen because of the mitigation plan that was implemented. So basically, you will hear mostly about my personal stories, not so much about what you can read in blog articles. I want you to learn on these mistakes, and please don't forget to ask your questions. And before I go deeper and before I start, a little bit more about myself. Ania Szostek. Thank you, Josh, for pronouncing my last name correctly. It's not an easy one. Most recently, I have been a product director at Tinder, where I was responsible initially for trust and safety team, and then for product personalization for international markets. Currently, since about 2 months, I'm doing a career sabbatical, and I highly recommend it to anyone. So, it's probably a topic for another discussion, another product people meeting. I often call my career a portfolio instead of a linear progression, because I was moving to a completely different roles, not related, and also a lot of my moves were pretty much horizontal. I started my career at Procter & Gamble, where I worked on physical goods production. So yes, I was manufacturing and managing the supply chain of Pampers diapers. But I've learned really a lot. And about 8 years ago, I joined Google, where I stayed for almost 6 years. First, as a program manager in trust and safety department. It was more of an operational role. But I slowly started making my way to the core product by working on, for example, huge product escalations or collecting manual review data for machine learning. It made me thinking more and more about the product, and I really wanted to have a say about what the shape and the future of product is going to look like. And a natural way was product management, which finally happened through joining Google Shopping and slowly being closer and closer to engineering, closer and closer to this decision making. It was neither a short nor easy path to get to product for me, but I always value the skills that I gained in other roles and departments. And I'm a strong believer that these skills are transferable and contribute to how good of a PM you are. So again, topic for another discussion, like how to get from producing Pampers to being a tech product manager. Happy to talk about it another time. Personally, I live in Zurich in Switzerland, so probably not so far from most of you. And probably like many of you, I'm a big fan of mountain sports. And enough about me. Let's get this started. So a word about optimization, because it's going to be a word that will come back in a lot of slides or a topic. As a product manager, understanding how your product is performing is really crucial for making data-driven decisions, and that ultimately drives success. Measuring, analyzing product metrics obviously provides you insights, how your product is being used and how you can improve it, and helps you make informed decisions. But what if you have been optimizing since years and you see little to no improvement? I'm sure that many of you have been part of these endless optimizations, or maybe you are at the moment. We can call it even like a science lab, where product teams tend to focus their efforts on highly measurable, yet really superficial improvements to their product. Collectively, these small-scale optimizations don't do much to innovate, or they don't add any customer value. For more and more companies, optimization has become the goal rather than balanced product development roadmap. And I've been at companies where it was the goal. The assumption is that making improvements to existing solutions is that one thing will drive that will drive the results. There's nothing else that will drive them. It will be only optimizations. But even effective optimizations can't take the place of real innovation. And while trying to optimize so hard, you can completely miss out on threats and opportunities. And anyone really working with data can fall into this trap. Despite running many small changes and tests, there comes a time where the gain is literally no visible. And this is called a local maximum. You can imagine like climbing a hill, and there you keep seeking that higher and higher point, but you don't really see the other mountains. You climb the hill, but you're at the angle that you don't see that there is another mountain behind the mountain you're climbing. And that's the local maximum. Because your techniques will reach only the local one, not the global one. And the local maximum occurs really frequently when PMs and UXers rely too much on A/B testing to make improvements. And this type of development is obviously used by many companies. And I mean, most of my roles were very much A/B test driven as well. And we did a lot of testing at Tinder, with such a big amount of user, it's quite easy to just do A/B testing and basically base your decisions on that. But there's also a psychological reason to the local maximum problem. It is our human tendency to rely too heavily on what we already know. Our KPIs, our old research, our way of working, testing, etc., etc. And sometimes you can optimize locally, but if you are near a local maximum, you need to push larger changes. So an example here from Google, from my years of experience there. What can happen when you favor the comfort of conviction and or optimize based on the local maximum? I'll give you the example I was personally part of in 2017 around. I was working at the time in trust and safety department of Google, setting manual review operations for ads, including also YouTube ads. Suddenly, the operational role, but my role became extremely important because I had to set up a multi-location structure for manual review data, times hundreds of what we were already doing. What exactly happened? The problem is often called the 250 billion problem because Google lost 250 billions at that time. What happened is that more and more big companies started leaving Google YouTube ads due to monetization of violent or extreme content. So basically you could find the ads of these companies like P&G, let's say, on videos with violent content that was not taken down by Google models, algorithms, or moderators. You can imagine what sort of branding issue it was for these companies. So they started leaving Google advertising in masses. And why do you think it happened? Any good guesses? No guesses? Okay. Well, the answer is here. Google was optimizing for its local maximum. And that maximum was spam. Same KPI? Yes, exactly. Like over-focusing on that one same KPI. Spam was the most prevalent policy violation on YouTube. So almost all headcount, almost all energy was invested in fighting it. What was forgotten, though, is that spam, even though extremely prevalent, is not as harmful, or you can read it, not as impactful. This 0.00001% of this bad extreme content, you can try to visualize like beheaded people. This was exactly it. This percent was not prevalent. But the harm made by them was so unproportionally big to the amount of investment made in fighting this violation. So it took Google the loss of 250 billion to decide to staff teams that will be impacting almost non-existent violations, but so harmful and so impactful at the same time that we really had to set up these models from the scratch. And so many companies have learned on Google problems and did not repeat these mistakes afterwards. Like, for example, TikTok and Instagram, they, from the start, when they established the trust and safety team, they staffed appropriate teams who will work on hate speech and extremist content. Not like Google, years after establishing TNS, they made it from the start. And let's go back to our local maximum optimization. So if you've hit the point of diminishing returns, and you can't seem to move the needle, or like it's moving like really like not as you want, you will need to get bold and make some more daring decisions to climb that other mountain that's behind it. But just because you got some larger gains with innovative testing or radical redesign doesn't mean that iterative testing should be over. It should not. And I don't want you to think that you should stop optimizing. Like, let's continue it, because there is an extreme spectrum to everything. There's an extreme spectrum to not optimizing as well, also from Google. I'm sure that you know it. And if you don't know it, check this out. This is the site that lists all products killed by Google. When instead of optimizing, Google tends to reinvent the wheel over and over again. So, you know, one company, but two different spectrums. And it often happens when there is an optimization burnout or whenever new people take over product development. So yes, let's optimize, but let's just make sure that there is that other mountain often. And we were on optimization, and a topic that's related to the overall obsession with internal metrics. Sometimes the focus is entirely on internal metrics with no regard for customer success. And many product teams become obsessed with internal metrics like revenue growth, monthly active users, customer retention, etc., etc. The truth is, most internal metrics are really superficial. They are just indicators of, they are not the real indicators of product success, and therefore shouldn't be the primary focus of product management. It's far better to answer the question, like, how can we effectively deliver greater value to our customers? If you can answer that question and create a good business model around that answer, your internal metrics will mostly follow. At Tinder, I want to give you the example from my recent experience, where product is extremely metrics and A/B test driven, which is good. We can really see what's happening there. But on a high level, there are a lot of acquisition metrics. Engagement ones related to swiping, conversion ones, like, is the first message sent? Conversion doesn't necessarily always mean subscription, that you go from, like, you know, freemium to premium. It also means that, you know, conversion is from the user that just entered to the user that is going to continue use your product. And finally, the hardest one to measure is the satisfaction at Tinder, because we don't know really what happens once user moved out of our app. They usually moved like to Messenger, WhatsApp, etc. We don't track it. We have no way to track it. Things are not always as easy as just measuring and decision making at Tinder. And see our journey again here. Is it as obvious as moving from one point to the other? Like, is it a pure transaction or is it something more? Things are getting complex because in many products we see and observe a part of something bigger. And this bigger thing is human emotions. Yes, we even have emotions when we open an email. Like, for example, like, I sometimes have an anxiety that leads to procrastination. Like, really, like in most of the products, like in social media, for example, you have emotions when you're scrolling social media. When you see all of these posts from your friends who are on holidays, or when you're reading a comment, or where you are replying to a comment, the amount of emotions in dating apps, in dating journey, is almost infinite. Like, for example, we are anxious about authenticity of other people and their intentions, about privacy, the data we share with the moment we upload the picture of our face. In some cultures, it is not really accepted. We are afraid about our physical safety when we meet someone. And unfortunately, as an app, we can't track it, what exactly happens there. We care about, and we also look forward to, respectful communication. We want to make sure that our reputation is not damaged on that kind of app and any other apps like social media. And everything in total, these are just examples, it's just like one big emotional investment. And not only in dating app, but also in many other products or applications. And these emotions are in fact what defines or not the success of our users on the app. It took us a lot of mistakes to get to that point. It's extremely hard to measure them, I'm telling you. yes, like at Tinder, we did deep dive a lot in KPIs, and we can have some hypotheses from there. But they are worth really nothing if we don't mix them with the qualitative data, with talking to users, with understanding how they really feel. Like going sometimes like on user research, we kind of act as psychologists. Because only when we understand that, we will understand why they are leaving us. And believe me, as many people and as many demographics, as many reasons you will find they will leave. That's why it's important not to be like over maniacal about your hacked KPIs. And instead try to see where people's sentiment is and really talk to them and try to understand their feelings. I went really deep into that, but moving on, because there are more traps. Apparently, what happens in most of the apps that we are building, most of the people use around 5 apps regularly. And as product managers, we often over prioritize for power users. Power users are those users who love our product and use it more than the organic pattern of users. So if you're a PM, let's say, of a grocery product, most of the people, the pattern would be that they shop once every week or every 2 weeks. And your power users would be the ones that are shopping more than that. At Tinder, let's say, most of the people will want to have one date and have one match and really like have a quality conversation. But then you have all of these power users that are swiping a lot, liking a lot, messaging a lot. So they are really driving your metrics up. It's usually like the fanatics of your product who would jump at every opportunity to basically connect, give you feedback, and they will adopt every feature. They will try every little workflow and improvement that's being shipped. And many PMs fall into this trap, this 1% trap. Why? Because it's easy, because you are basically talking to people who are really passionate about your product. And this is especially true in B2P products, where PMs often resort to solving the most complex workflows just because they keep hearing about those issues from the power users. The truth is that most of the users will never use your most complex workflows. And you've lost them at hello. And I really like this quote from Mo Ali from product faculty, because it really resonates with me and my experiences on the product I was managing. Because by continuing to solve problems for the 1%, you are basically abandoning the 99% that will never get that far. We had that problem at Tinder that I mentioned. So like we were optimizing for those who were swiping like crazy until we realized that other users might actually hate it. Like, for example, female users, they got overwhelmed until it became an almost unresolvable vicious cycle of many, let's call them regular users. And I remember that also at Google Merchant Center, where we were optimizing for these big merchants that connect with us through API. And these big merchants usually have local IT guys that would be managing complex workflows we created for them. And then, a small world of small merchants changed and started to be more democratized by players like Shopify, let's say, but also Instagram and Facebook, to be honest. It was a big push for Google to finally create simple workflows for these masses, for these 99% that also want similar capabilities. Similar, but simpler. So if you ask, okay, so what should I do about it not to fall into this trap? When you get the customer feedback about something in your product, you can ask yourself some of the following questions. Like, for example, how many people are experiencing this? Like, is it the 1, 5, 10% feature or the 90% one? Are there other users? Are there areas that you can tackle that can get more users to become the power users? You can ask these questions. Your marketing teams will tell you how hard it is to get anyone to even notice your product. So after noticing it, users, they gave it a shot, and you should do whatever it takes to make sure that your activation process is exceptional, not only for those who have these local IT guys, but for everyone else. And I'm not suggesting that you should ignore your power users. They are your probably biggest fans. Just don't over prioritize them at the cost of everyone else. The next trap, a little bit about revenue and the financial pressure. It's been a hard time recently in the last 2 years when the stocks of all companies were falling. And I'm sure many of you have felt the pressure to deliver the short-term revenue results, especially before earning calls, board directors meetings, etc. And there is a gigantic fear that your A/B test that you're running now will give like this 0.5 revenue dip. And possibly you've already done that test, and while all other metrics were positive, like for example, the user sentiment, including, it resulted in slight revenue loss. But down the heart, this is a short-term revenue loss, and it will be back soon. So the decision seems quite simple, but is not. Do we focus on short to mid-term revenue gain at the expense of the user gains? Or do we focus on short-term revenue loss at the expense of stock price? and also at the expense of changes we are making who might satisfy users in the long term. We had that problem at Tinder. It's interesting, but Tinder is a constant fight between what male and female users want. Female users, they tend to invest more in their profile, and they really appreciate longer onboarding flow and questions we ask them on the way. Male users, on the contrary, want it quick and simple. Just get me to that experience. Don't ask me questions. So they might drop when we ask them to upload too many pictures or answer too many questions. And male users are mostly the ones who are paying subscription because of the non-even ratio we're having on Tinder. Usually like 60 to 40, 70 to 30, 70% males to 30 users. So, if you want to be discovered as a male user, sometimes you need to pay because you're just like, there are too many of you. So where the board of directors worry is that when you require more content in profile and create a better experience for women, we'll lose a lot of paying men. And yes, on all the short-term A/B tests, it was happening. But the reality is that if we change the experience and require more content in profiles, women will love it. And we'll get more of the women on the platform. And many of users across genders are more satisfied, but we lose some of the males who pay, some of them. But at the end, more females will mean more males, because that's how it works on the dating app. So requiring users additional investment in their profile will improve the experience for all and lead to long-term positive network and long-term positive revenues results. But again, long-term. That's why it's so hard to get your C-suite bought into this idea. So how could you overcome the focus on the short-term revenue goals? It's not an easy one, and I have to be honest, it's mostly driven by the fears of the C-level in most of the companies. One of the ideas you could pursue to prove the point that your feature or change you're making will have a return on investment after a certain time is to choose a low profitable but relatively representative in terms of demographics market to run a longer test for let's say 6 to 8 months. There might be a revenue dip, but try to see if revenue bounces back after some time, because because of all the investment you made in the user experience. And I hope that there will be more and more people trying this and sharing their learnings. So even sharing it with me, I'm extremely curious because I was fighting for it for a long time. I know we are on time, and I'm already finishing, Josh. But let's give you the very last one, very last trap not to fall into. As a product manager, you are literally trapped in between so many competing priorities and so many different points of views. And I also used to believe that success means keeping all of my stakeholders happy, or at least like minimizing their unhappiness. But this is practically impossible. It's not your job to give everyone what they want as a product manager, but your job really is to give customers what they want. When you prioritize the right things for the customer, you will help everything. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, they will realize that it was a successful idea. So thank you. That will be all from me. Please let me know what are your questions, any question, anything, literally, I'm happy to answer.
Thanks, Ania. Everybody listening, please send messages in the chat. We're going to collect messages from all of the places we're streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and LinkedIn. So please post all your questions there, and we'll bring them into our platform here, and I'll ask them on your behalf. I'm going to take over sharing just while we wait for those questions to come in. Thank you so much for that. It was very interesting. I've got a few questions myself.
We have.
So while we just wait for those to come in, we're just going to quickly go through product people and what use cases we cover. So yeah, we're interim fractional product managers, as I mentioned, or product leaders. As I mentioned before, permanent position covers. So while you're hiring, or people on maternity leave, parental covers. Yeah, we cover product coaching and consultants. So if you need product leaders to be coached or product teams to be coached, we have incredibly knowledgeable product folk in our team, in our upper management that are great at that. We have a few people in the company that are very, very good at product discovery, and we've got some really great internal structures and frameworks that lead to really great product discovery. So we're also really good at that. What we're not doing, we're not recruiters, we're not we're not a freelance marketplace, and we're not a development and design agency. We do have a lot of those people that are close contacts that we can put you in touch with if you are looking for them, but that is not what we do. Our B2C clients in the past, Freenow, Tier, Freeletics, Backmarket, Douglas, Escosia, Zalando, big names. Yeah, we've worked with them. Our B2B side, Utopia, Remote, World Health Organization. Yeah, we've had some big clients. Yeah, so we cover a lot of use cases. Some feedback. I'm not going to read through this, but it's all positive, I promise. And then just a snapshot of who we've worked with. So yeah, we've kind of 200 cross-functional teams supported, 70 plus clients, so Series A startups all the way through to publicly listed companies. We've got 40 product leaders and product managers, as I mentioned before. And then an interesting stat, so we've got 60% of our team is female, like Tinder. And then 60% of our leadership team is also female, which is great. This is our wonderful looking group of product managers. This is definitely my favorite slide. We're also hiring. We're looking for associate product management consultants. So please go to our job board. It's on our website, and apply. It's honestly a great application process. As I mentioned before, I did this 3.5-4 months ago now. There's feedback the whole way through. It was very unique experience applying here. And we're going to take some of those questions and we are going to ask them. Okay. Ania, I know you can see all of these, so I'm just going to go through.
Should I read them?
I can read them to you, and then maybe you can answer. So we'll start from, how do you sell this to stakeholders? Normally data wins, but how do you go beyond?
Good question.
Very relevant to your question. I mean, to your presentation.
I was also trying to figure out how to sell it. And, we came to the frustration point, I guess. with many of product managers. And it was a very collective effort done by product management as a whole to basically like build the use case and just try to convince management that we're not going to lose anything. So keeping that a small A/B experiment, picking that one market that, you know, even if something happens, you're not gonna lose a lot. It's not going to impact our stock price. So I'm sure like in every company, you have that small demographic, or you have that, the demographic, that country that where you could test it, where you could basically prove the point.
I know Nike does a lot of testing in New Zealand for that reason.
There's a lot of testing. There's a lot of testing in New Zealand because it's English-speaking market, and it's quite representative of the entire Western culture.
Yeah, and it's tiny.
Tiny, yeah, and it's tiny, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh no, we used to test in New Zealand and Australia.
Okay, let's go to the next one. So what strategies can product managers employ to advocate for user experience when facing resistance from upper management?
Qualitative data. Really recording user interviews, showing them to management, like, you know, extracting the core from these interviews. Remember that the problem we used to have at Tinder is that not everyone understood safety. That the feeling of safety is such an integral part of the dating journey. So like really going to user and then coming back with that extraction of what they said is really what convinced management to basically invest in some of these areas.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that does make sense. I'm going to whip through these rather than keep talking about them, because there are a lot of questions here, way more than I've ever experienced, actually. So this one is about local maximum. He said optimum, but I think they mean maximum. Do you have any tips to find out when you're there, and like how to see the ideal, or how to know the ideal local maximum?
You will know it because you usually, like, you can see in your data everything, almost everything. Basically, like, based on your analysis, you know that you are investing in majority, but there is something else. So you know that it exists. You just need to basically like do the kind of SWOT analysis of what you see in your data and categorize it of how a big threat it is and how important it is. So I would say just don't look only at these biggest columns in your analysis, but also make sure you did a little deep dive into these smaller ones, and you will know it.
Okay, cool. This came from LinkedIn. What challenges or common pitfalls should teams be aware of? So kind of the other side of that, you know, but now, like, what are the pitfalls when attempting to implement, lost the question, optimize local optimization strategies, and how can these be mitigated to ensure successful outcomes?
Say again, Josh, sorry, I couldn't.
So I was saying, so what challenges or common pitfalls should teams be aware of when attempting to implement local optimization strategies, and how can these be mitigated to ensure successful outcomes?
Yeah. So it's basically like similar to what I was answering before, like, you know it, and like really base it on the common sense. Like don't always try to like go deeper into data, but try to basically see what is the problem of the user. Like, I'm not gonna go back to this trust and safety example because that was an extreme one. But if you are optimizing that one point all the time and you see you're really not moving any needle on it, like try to go back to the qualitative. I'm always a big fan of just going back to what user thinks, asking them open-ended questions, not biasing them. So that would be that would be my number one leading strategy, to find that other hill, basically find that other mountain that you don't see.
It's so nice to hear how much qualitative you lean on.
Yeah, I do. Maybe because I was doing so many A/B tests in the past, and I realized at the point that, they are worth nothing if you don't pair them with qual.
Yeah. No, that's good to hear. It's good to validate my assumptions here. So there's a question from Maran. They've said thank you for sharing your experience. And they've asked, I think PMs are responsible for being the voice of the customer, but sales may insist that they are the main channel intermediary to customers. Basically, he's trying to figure out how to deal with that push and pull from the sales side, thinking that they are the main intermediary, but the PMs are actually the ones that should be kind of drawing insights. What's your advice in the scenario when the sales team is pushing that?
Actually, on this one, it's a difficult question for me because I didn't work as much with sales in my career. Actually, no, maybe one example was, but that was like a very collaborative relationship when back at Google, we wanted to launch buy with Google in France, and sales was right because sales wanted to basically not only take that product from the US and launch in France, but do a lot of adjustments and personalization. So actually that was the very collaborative relation because I was like, yes, you're right. I'm totally bought in. And we were just fighting together. With anyone else who was the decision maker of not making that personalization.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered the question. Let me just look at that salesman. I would say like just like valuing that feedback from sales, because yes, they know a lot. So that was my example. I really valued that feedback, and they were completely right. But at the same time, maybe inviting them to some of your research you're doing, just basically like making them present in your work, so they can see what user thinks. I would say they wouldn't argue when they see the data.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it differs in every company, and like how that's product.
Exactly, because like I understand that in B2B you have more sales, and they are more channeling that feedback, and they are the ones channeling the feedback. On the other hand, in such a company, I would imagine that PM works a lot with sales, collaborates with sales basically on daily basis. So that feedback is really flowing, and both teams are really aligned on what users are saying.
Yeah, that's true, because they kind of work on the same feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another question here about the possible traps in the user versus business needs balance. They've asked, not making all that stakeholders happy and focusing on user wants can be a trap if somehow that take over business focus. Basically, what are the possible traps between users and business needs? We're like trying to balance those user and business needs.
Yeah, good one. It's a hard one. Is the one like, short-term revenue or like short-term revenue goals and long-term user needs. And I guess there is no ready recipe. It requires a little bit of experimentation of what works. You can't just completely forget about business goals at the same time. But I personally, I would be the one saying revenue will follow. Just give it a chance. If you can. If you're really in this situation that someone allows you to experiment, the revenue will follow. And it always did in every example, in every project I was working on. So just, convincing others to try it would be my tip here.
Yeah. There seems to be a big stakeholder theme here and kind of managing in the departments. There's another question here about could you share product team communication challenges between devs and designers? So managing those challenges between dev, designers, and I guess product as well. How do you set that up for success?
Where do I see this question?
It's the last question.
Could you please share a product team communication challenges, devs, designers, you have the most? With devs, the communication challenges I used to have in my teams are with devs because they were not included in the discovery phase. And that was the mistake also of not including them in the discovery phase, because often what you do, you just like take your UX counterpart and you just basically run your discovery like that, or maybe analytics. But you tend to include devs later. So that was the challenge I faced because there was a big resistance of not developing the product that was already aligned, like, all of the research was done, etc. Because someone basically didn't agree with that point of view. So I would say just, here I would, if I could go back with the time, I would always have all three parties present in the discovery phase.
Okay, so those are the end of the questions. Thank you for answering that. It's a tricky one, that as well. It's because it's kind of it's a great answer, because I've actually just gone through that through that phase, and you're actually right. And I now realize I probably should have done a little bit more work to.
So actually, recently, like most of the communication challenges were coming from basically, like, if you are part of a bigger company, or like you are like, there is a mother company of your company that also has some expectations, and managing that communication is a big challenge as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's very true, and I'm living that right now. So there's something I wanted to ask from your presentation before we move into kind of just the thank you and the goodbyes. You mentioned on Tinder, I don't know if you can answer this, but you mentioned, oh, is she gone? Are you there, Ania? I think I might have lost earlier. Okay, well, I think we are going to wrap up then. In that case, it is time. I will have to ask that question to Ania offline. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're going to end the live recording soon, but there we go.
Okay, I'm here. It kicked me out of the meeting. Sorry.
No, I was just busy wrapping up, but I can quickly ask the question before. I was going to ask in the Tinder slide that you were talking about how during the flow, the onboarding flow, or all the way sort of the whole user flow, you lose users when they go to, for instance, the normal messaging platform, WhatsApp, or just texting. Yes. Did you test anything to bring users back? Did you attempt at all while you were there to bring users back? And I don't know if you can share them. And why do you think they failed? And what were you most hopeful for as far as strategies went?
Ooh, that's a topic for another presentation, probably going through the onboarding funnel. But yes, onboarding funnel is something that we are investing a lot of effort in to find out why are we losing users and where are we losing them. If they basically don't, if they just drop and we don't see them coming back, but they are still like kind of like, we have their account, their email, like we can basically like message them somehow, but we also don't, all this email communication, we are trying not to overdo it because people are not reading emails. But I would say that rather preventing, because we see the engagement dropping and we can see in some of the metrics that we might lose that person. And there are ways to basically like, boost that profile. But usually what happens is that if someone reaches the aha moment, this aha moment pretty quickly, we won't lose them. So if someone gets a match quickly, that person will stay with us until something else will happen. But then we don't have a way to see if something good happened or something bad happened.
That's what I was more talking about. Yeah, that end section, once they've matched and once the communication goes off the platform. How do you, did you ever test bringing things back?
No, so we don't have a way, but Hinge is doing that. Hinge is following up on the success story. Basically, what happened afterwards. We're not doing that. Maybe Tinder will do it in the future.
Okay, cool. No, I was curious. It's a with all of these marketplaces, and I guess not so much that Tinder's a marketplace, but marketplaces lose users from their platform because they go off platform when they start communicating, and they get comfortable when there's sort of verified each other. They move off platform, and that's an interesting thing to try and bring them back.
Exactly. That's why, Tinder Swindler, that movie. If you look at the main communication channel that was used in that movie, it was WhatsApp. I don't know why was it called Tinder Swindler. It should be called WhatsApp Swindler. Because these people were messaging mostly on WhatsApp. Yes, they got to know each other on Tinder, but that's it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, no, it's an interesting problem to try and solve. We're going to end it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ania, really appreciate it. This has been a great chat. There's been a lot of interaction. This has been great.
Thank you so much.
Is there anywhere where people can find you, that you want people to find you?
LinkedIn. Message me on LinkedIn. Add me on LinkedIn. We can continue the discussion there.
Cool. Thank you so much. We'll. Do you mind just waiting for a few minutes afterwards, just so we can have a chat? But everyone else, thank you so much. We will be ending the live chat if that hasn't been done already. And